We're back again. You may or may not have seen this old beast here. As you can see, it's not a K5 Blazer, it's actually a GMC Jimmy. This one right here, if I haven't already introduced it, pretty straightforward, 350 cubic inch V8 gasoline angina right here. Made it up to a $700 R4. And allegedly that is. The sticker says a 305 and the order sheet says a 305. But the guy I bought it from told me it was rebuilt. I mean, I know for a fact the engine that's in there is not the stock one, at least in its original configuration. Due to all of the emissions equipment deleted, there's a chrome oil pan on the underside. I think there's some chrome valve covers, some random stuff in there. And it runs semi all right. We'll get into some of that stuff. It runs all right now after a couple months that I've had it. But what we're delving into today is gonna be something that you guys are probably all too familiar with on these old hunks of steel. The rear window, the tailgate window on either a Suburban or a Jimmy, a Blazer. If it's one of those automatic windows with the buttons and little fancy guys, most of them don't work. I've maybe had one or two in my lifetime out of a handful of these guys that have actually worked, and even then those are real slow and they stick and it's iffy. You know, if you're out camping in the woods, I'm always worried if I put it down it ain't gonna come back up, but then again that's a different story. So what we're doing on this one is we're gonna swap it out to a manual, a crank window. They did make them, it's far less common, but some of these Blazers or Suburbans came with crank windows. I think all of the M1009, the diesel military Blazers, came with the crank handle. And it's relatively a straightforward swap. But there's a couple things that are gonna make it a little bit different that I'm gonna get into on this particular truck. So let's just go over it real quick. When I got it, there's a button, it's automatic. The key doesn't do anything with the button on the dash. I push it, I hear some weird, bad, grinding, popping noises, and that's about it. The other thing that's kind of interesting about this one is I can grab the window by itself and yank it up and down. It does get stuck in the middle, but if I wiggle it and push it just in the right ways, I can get it to go up or down by itself. Typically, in my experience with electronic window regulators, you're not supposed to be able to move it by hand. So that may be an indication, but I just don't care a whole lot. I hadn't had a chance. I've been messing with other things on this truck, and when I was in the junkyard last weekend, I found a Suburban that had a manual rear tailgate. So from what I understand, I'll let you know if this is actually true, but from what I understand, these Suburban manual crank tailgates will swap into the Blazer, not the window. Just the handle mechanism and all of the gears inside the tailgate will swap into a Blazer with a little bit of cutting and welding. Maybe we'll find out about that. I'm gonna try to do it without it first. I may have to cut it and weld it, but I'll show you all the pieces. This is an 85 GMC Jimmy. I grabbed the regulator out of an 81 Suburban. It was a Chevy Suburban, maybe, could have been GMC, it doesn't really matter. So those are the parts. I'll show you all the parts. I'll show you what we're looking at right now, but those are the pieces and we're gonna try to swap them in this video. Okay, trying out this sweet new thing called the tripod, since all 7 of my subscribers are complaining. We got shaky videos, but I wanna show you what I got from the junkyard. So here is the actual crank that I grabbed from the Suburban. Pretty straightforward. I'm not gonna go over how it works at the moment, but everything on this tailgate is about 7/16 nuts that hold it together, aside from the cover plate that are Phillips head screws. Aside from that, here's the actual regulator, and it's almost identical to the automatic one. It just has this knob that slides through, and this guy turns and cranks all of your gears to slide the window up and down. Other than that, you've got these little tracks here that have an opening on one end that just slide over your regulator handle, and then this piece will bolt to the track attached to your glass, and that'll go up and down. Other than that, the only other piece that I grabbed that I saw because I thought it was kind of neat was this little spring-loaded ball wheel thing that's gonna push my window when I bolt it to the back side of this guy. It's going to push my window out so it doesn't hit any of the stuff in here and get caught. That's all this guy does. It may not be necessary. I've never seen it on any other truck aside from the one I grabbed it from. So that was all I grabbed. Hopefully that's enough. Now I'm gonna have to take you off the tripod for this next step just to show you the stuff that's gotta come off to get this whole piece apart. So bear with me. All right, we're going back to the shaky camera, aka my hands and my mouth breathing in the background. So bear with me, just keep in mind I gotta use my hand to focus the camera. It does not automatically focus. I have to physically grab the front of the lens and twist it because it's broken, but if we get enough subscribers I'll fix it. So in the meantime, enough complaining. The window here, this guy, it's completely, it moves hand. I can push it in and out on my own. So to get this thing apart, if I recall, there's only 4 bolts on the regulator that actually hold it in. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And you gotta move the window and move the arms up and down to see them. But they're all 7/16. Here's one. It was right in here. And then the other one is right here. And as you move the window, the channel might cover stuff up. Now we gotta move this thing, I think, all the way up if I remember. And some of these holes in here are gonna line up somewhere through here to allow me to get to the rest of these bolts. And I think it's actually right there behind the window. And then you can see it. That's the other one there. And there's probably another one underneath this regulator. Now for this automatic one, I'm probably gonna have to take out the regulator. 1, 2, and 3 right here, and that should probably just pull out. And I can disconnect the wires. So for now, I'm gonna slide this window up and down, and I'm gonna get these other bolts out for the regulator. Then I'm gonna get the electronic part out, the motor, and we'll go from there, and I'll show you what we're looking at. Oh no, the foreman's back. Inspecting. It's not OSHA approved. She's back at it again. Now as long as all of your weather stripping has completely rotted and fallen off, or the person that you bought it from took it off, so this stuff should be a piece here, should be a piece here, as long as that's gone, once you have your regulator detached and these little channel guys slid off, you can take your entire window out and get it out of your way. Then you just gotta fish out this whole regulator unit, and we're gonna get this guy out of our way, and then we're gonna try to position the manual one in there. We'll line it up, we'll see if they're even remotely close in size and shape. Now, as I sit here disappointed, the regulators, they're not the same at all, but I think I can make it work. Basically the holes don't line up essentially for where the bolts go through. I can probably drill some other holes if there's metal here and put a nut on the back side, some sort of nylon lock washer, but whatever. There's one more thing that we got to do. You can see down through these holes, we are right in the center of the tailgate. If we look down there, that is a nut on the back side of the electric, you know, the guy on the back side here, that dude with the key. It's basically the electronic equivalent of this one, the manual crank. They are 7/16. We're going to take 1 and 2 off, and that'll just slide out, and then we can put our manual crank in there. And we can start figuring out what we're going to do with the manual regulator to make that work. One more thing I neglected to mention. Stop it. There's an electronic or electrical clip here. Obviously, it's just like any other GM clip. You gotta pop off. If you're familiar with the GM window electronic regulators, you gotta pop off this tab. That dog just does not care. And then you got to pry this switch or the connector off of here, and then this whole thing will drop down. Now, of course, I used the impact to take off these nuts, and it launched them way up into there into BFE, God knows where, so they're forever inside the tailgate and I'll never get them back. But just wanted to show you that. Now, keep in mind, well, I guess you don't have to, it might get in the way. About this much wiring. It's a whole harness for the automatic window. It attaches here by the tailgate, and then it runs directly into this hole right here, and it fishes all these wires through there. Some of it goes up here in this corner, some of it goes down into the automatic, you know, window, crank, whatever thing. Some goes to the regulator. You got to disconnect it all and fish it out. You could leave it in, but I don't recommend it. So that's all out of the way. Now let's mess with these guys. The manual regulator versus the automatic. I've got an 81, this is an 85. Let's figure something out. Whoa, folks, hold the phoner. We might have a situation here. So I slid the old manual regulator, you can tell by the junkyard initial there from, you know, employee Karen. We have one hole here. Jeez. Let me focus it with my hand again like I was telling you. One hole lines up. Two hole lines up. Three hole lines up. Five hole lines up. We get down under here, the crank lines up. So I'm gonna put the crank in, I'm gonna bolt it down, just gonna slide right through those two holes, 7/16 nuts on the backside. Then I'm gonna put the regulator in and I'm gonna bolt it down good old lukewarm like. And then we can slide our window back in the channel. We can put it in those little, well, we got to put on the slider deals. Now here's a thing that I want to mention real quick. While you've got this stuff apart, let's just pretend that my regulator that's going in is this one on the ground. It's a great opportunity to grease all these gears here. You can grease these little plastic wheels because they'll blow apart into a million different pieces. If you don't, grease these channels. It's a great time to grease everything while you're in here. Yeah, I think that's about it. Enough rambling. The gears are all greased up. The channels are all greased. And the balls are greased. Let's attach this guy. The manual crank is attached in there. So let's bolt this guy up and then attach the window and see what happens when we spin it. That is just about gonna do it. The new regulator's in, it goes up and down. Everything pretty much swapped in, didn't have to cut or weld anything. The only thing that didn't do anything yet was this guy. This little, I think it was some sort of way to push the window down, and it bolted sort of right over here on the 81 Suburban that I grabbed. But otherwise, that is pretty much a wrap. It does stick up a couple inches here, but on my other truck, the 84, it does the same thing. So I don't know if it's supposed to go all the way down. Maybe that's what they mean by you got to cut it 2 inches so that it goes further down, but mine goes all the way up and it goes about that far down. Plenty of room on the sides. So that's gonna do it for this regulator swap. Yeah, all I'm gonna do is throw away the electrical stuff for the automatic. Maybe I'll keep it in a parts bin, and then I'll just put my trim pieces back over here This had nothing to do with the video, it was just off. You'd want to put this guy back on if you removed your entire window, which you don't have to do. You could have left that weather stripping in there, but that'll do it. Automatic to manual swap for a Blazer or a Jimmy or a Suburban.